silence, is that the young state of Israel received a very clear message from the world, from the Western world, and from America in particular. As long as you commit these crimes against Palestinians, you don't lose your membership in what is called the community of civilized nations of the West, or whatever you want to call it. As long as it's against the Palestinians, it's tolerated. We don't want to know about it much. We don't want to hear about it too much. But you are entitled, provided, of course, you have the right explanation of what you're doing, to go on with this. This is very, very important, because this explains the fact that the ethnic cleansing did not stop in 1948. If the message from the world is that you can justify ethnic cleansing in the name of the existence of Israel, and you can associate the existence of Israel with the existence of the West, or the national security of the West, then you can turn a blind eye when Israel continues the same things that it did in 1948 with a different mode. And we should remember that between 1948 and 1956, Israel expelled another 36 villages. We should remember that in 1967, the Israelis expelled 300,000 people from the West Bank. And we should understand what Israel did ever since in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip as part of that ideology which I described in the beginning of my talk. The space and the people are still a problem for Israel. They need, as they see it, as long as they are within the Zionist mindset, they need the territory as a whole. Not necessarily to have every Jew in the territory. They need control of the territory. And they need to have a very significant demographic presence, if not an exclusive demographic presence, on the land. Now, like in 1948, my great fear is that again, in both respects, Zionism is failing again. Now, I remember what they did in 1948 when they felt that it was a failure. They failed demographically, we know that. Despite everything that happened between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean, there is almost an equal number of Jews and Palestinians. So definitely, even for the most moderate Zionist person, this is a failure. And if they believe their own discourse, it's suicidal. There's a real existential danger, even if you are Amos Oz or Shimon Peres or all these other people who got Nobel Peace Prize. If you are a Zionist, you have to control every square inch of historical Palestine. Now, of course, some of these square inches can be autonomously run by the Palestinians, as the Israelis generously proposed in Camp David 2000. You remember the most generous offer ever one people made to another. It's like Count Dracula inviting you to come to his blood bank. As a customer. There is a limit to there is a limit to how far we can digest the gap between the discourse and the realities on the ground. And eventually, the situation today unfolds similar to 1948 in this respect, that you don't have total control on the area unless you use a lot of military power or you use excessive military power. And you don't have the demographic balance that you want unless you use ethnic cleansing once. Of course, this is not 1948. The Palestinians have also learned the lesson of 1948. I hope some people in the West have learned the lesson of 1948. And I don't want to end on a pessimistic note. I'm seeing these great dangers. But I think that unlike 1948, because history never repeats itself, we have a chance of doing what we all failed to do in 1948, to prevent it from happening. And each one of us has a role to play in order to bring it about, not just for the sake of the Palestinians, but for the sake of the Israeli Jews as well. There is a way forward that goes through strong pressure on the Israeli government, through sanctions and boycott and divestment to stop the occupation, through a future for Jews, Muslims and Christians in this land in a joint state, and through the creation of a democratic system that would allow everyone to have an equal opportunity and rights on the torn land, so that we all will be able to live there. Those who live there now and those who were expelled from that land and should be able to come back. There's no reason in the world.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pappe, for educating us on the concept and history of Zionism. Of course, tonight, with our short time, we've only been able to skim the iceberg on the topic of ethnic cleansing and how we play a role inside it. Everyone is encouraged to read Dr. Pappe's book. We have it for sale outside, and after the Q&A, we'll have a book signing. So right now, we can start with the Q&A. Just as usual, a few rules. We have 2 mics, 1 on each side. So we can form a line. We're going to form a line behind the mics. And 1 question per person, please. And please give the speaker time to respond. Okay, we can go ahead and get started. Please.
Thank you very much for an informative talk. And I've read your book. I really appreciate you telling the truth. But I want you to say a few words about some of the other victims as well. We know that the Palestinians were ethnically cleansed, that they're suffering today, but the region as a whole is suffering. There's been, Lebanon has been invaded 4 times, a 20-year occupation, civil war that killed 150,000. There might be another civil war. Look what's happened to Iraq. Many people say that the neocons pushed for the war in Iraq to make the world safe for Israel. And we might even be heading towards an attack from Iran. There's been other attacks on Syria, Egypt. The whole region, I think, is in danger of becoming inflamed, drawing us into World War III. Can you make a comment on that, please?
Okay. I'll take 1 question at a time. Of course, I didn't mention the other areas, and you're rightly to bring them up. I want to focus on Palestine. One of the unfortunate consequences of the fact that so many other countries are now under occupation in the Middle East and under the suffering from violence is that the Palestinian issue sometimes is sidelined. I didn't want to sideline it. But I think the only way I can answer to your comment, which is more the question, I think, is by saying that the things are related. Things are really related. And I think that a closure to the Palestine issue is a closure also to some of the issues that you have mentioned. There is a direct link between things which happened here in 2001 and the military operations of the Americans in Iraq and the attacks on Lebanon to the Palestine question. And a closure to that question can help to move us all towards a much more constructive path in the problems of these other countries. On the other hand, one should not have the illusion that the solution in the question of Palestine is necessarily a solution for all the problems that characterize countries like Lebanon and Iraq. They have their own problem because of the past and because of the present issues. But it definitely would help a lot. But it's a very difficult question for an activist, what you are